Welcome everybody for joining us this evening. My name is Christina Westfelling. I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement at Tacoma Art Museum. Thank you so much for being here. We're really incredibly excited to present this talk tonight. If you aren't familiar with our most recent exhibition at Tacoma Art Museum, before we had to shut down due to the COVID pandemic, we had recently opened up an exhibition called Forgotten Stories that was really looking at the work that was created during the WPA during the Great Depression in our Northwest region. So it was a wonderful look at kind of government funded art projects, many of which were big public art projects like post office murals and things like that. Unfortunately, we only got to spend 2 or 3 weeks with that show before we had to close the museum. There's a great virtual tour of that show on YouTube if you're interested in diving into that. But we thought that that also gave us a wonderful opportunity to look at another national moment of crisis that we're going through right now. What is government-funded public art looking like today? And so we reached out to our wonderful friends at Spaceworks to see if they could gather up some of the artists that they've been working with their Rapid Mural project. I know many of you have been enjoying the murals that have been popping up over closed businesses and all around downtown Tacoma. I know that they've been making my daily walks around town much more enjoyable. And then as the pandemic has gone on and we've seen the rise in protests around Black Lives Matter, some of the content on the murals has shifted to reflect much more pointed conversation around social justice in our community. So we're gonna have a rich conversation. There's a lot to talk about today. I'd also like to start by acknowledging the fact that Tacoma Art Museum does rest on the traditional land of the Puyallup people. So we're grateful for our continued partnership with the tribe. I think when we're talking about public art, so much of that is place-based. So I think it's important to acknowledge the place that we all sit upon for these conversations. So for some housekeeping before we dive in, if you have questions while our artists are digging into their big ideas, please feel free to drop those into the Q&A. That way they aren't going to get quite so lost in the chat box. Amelia, our public programs manager, will be dropping in links into the chat box. You can see that she's added a link to our Forgotten Stories exhibition and a link to the Rapid Mural project. Artist websites will be popping up there. So that's another way for you to kind of dig into some of this information. But with that, I'm going to hand it off to Gabriel Brown, who is our wonderful Spaceworks partner, and he's going to give us an overview of the Rapid Mural project and then facilitate our conversation with our fabulous team of artists. So thank you, Gabriel.
Absolutely. It's good to be here. And thank you so much for hosting this. And it's really nice just to take a moment to reflect and talk about this project with the big group of people and some of the artists here, because it's just been go, go, go. How do we change this? How do we shift? How do we respond now? How do we make more of this happen? And it's just been like, which I kind of enjoy, just the, rolling up our sleeves and just like diving in. But it's, man, it's also like really good to reflect. And this is also happening in, I think, every city, it's fair to say, across the country, no doubt, like is having these murals go up rapidly on boards across their cities with all this messaging, and so much is happening right now. So when you think about how much art is being produced right now, like just in the US, I can't even imagine around the world in this form, like right now, I think it's pretty profound. And so I'm really glad that we're having this conversation today. So anyway, my name is Gabriel, and I work for Spaceworks, small nonprofit, started 10 years ago in Tacoma. We do public art. We pay artists to do murals on boarded buildings and activate windows around the city. We also run a small gallery, the 950 Gallery. And then we also help small businesses in Tacoma. So we've helped a couple hundred now small businesses get started in Tacoma. It's kind of, we have a class that helps them further their business plans, and then a variety of other support services. So this was a great way that we were able to jump in and help. is by just administering some of these murals, basically. And so I'm going to give you like a quick, just like overview of the Rapid Mural program that we rapidly threw together. And then I'll hand it over to the artists to kind of give little mini presentations of their work. Tiffany Hammonds is hopefully going to be joining us too here. She's texting me and she's trying to get into the Zoom. So I don't know if Christina or Amelia, if either of you can like kind of maybe help her. I did just forward her the last email.
We're working on it, so she should hop in soon.
Okay, great. And then we'll have a discussion, and then we'll save room at the end for a chat with everybody, you know, and answering some audience questions. I think here I'll share my screen real quick. Does that look good?
Yeah.
Okay. So I would say, like, for Spaceworks anyway, the kind of the genesis of this was right here, these 4 businesses boarding up. This was at like in late March, I believe. So this is right at the beginning of the pandemic really spreading. And so these 4 businesses here decided to board up, and many others around town did. And they really were early to like reach out to artists right away and ask them to come in and start painting murals. And at the meantime, Downtown Tacoma Partnership, JD Elquist there, was on the streets talking to businesses. He's the downtown retail advocate is his job and so he's down there talking with the businesses, and the conversation just happened really quickly, evolved quickly. Like, how can we get some of these artists compensated? How can we do more of these murals? Can we help other businesses? Do they need help getting boarded up? Do they need help just getting connected with artists? You know, a lot of people are coming to Spaceworks at that time too. Businesses looking for artists, artists looking for work. So it was just really quick, us trying to like connect the dots and throw together a quick sort of program, so to speak. So what we were able to do is just reach out to a small group of artists right away and ask them to give us some designs. Then when we shared those designs with businesses that wanted to participate, we actually just put that on our website for businesses. They could fill out a form and like request a mural, and they could choose which like design they wanted. And then we just kind of sent the artists out, and within a couple days they were just going up and just being painted, and it was just happening. And then we're on the back end, we're trying to get people paid as fast as we can. A really important part to mention here is this is during the stay home order. So how can you send artists out as an organization and you know, on a contract and paying them and send them out during that time when you're supposed to be staying home, not doing this work? So our approach then was to do these very utilitarian like. So it's falling under the realm of kind of building maintenance. And so like kind of like a graffiti prevention, building maintenance. It was that was more kind of the focus of like when these boards are going up. So we decided to pay artists $75 per panel, 4x8 panel, $75 a panel. And with the idea that they could do some pretty easy designs to put up quickly and and they'd be easy to replicate too. So like, that's why I bring up this example. This is a mural by Mindy Barker. And then here is the same mural then done on 2 different sites. This one is on 6th Ave, High Maintenance Salon. And then this one is on Opera Alley. And so that was our approach to going into it. And everyone was able to work so fast and get these murals up really quick. So that was our approach in the beginning. The city of Tacoma, we worked with the city of Tacoma to kind of, you know, they were in touch with a lot of businesses with boards and with broken windows. They're reaching out to the city, some were asking for help. So some people in the city were able to kind of send us to building places that got vandalized or places that kind of needed the help the most, maybe because it was financial reasons. Also kind of spreading out through the city, you know, some too, and sharing this across different neighborhoods. So this is in International District, and Nori Kimura did this one, who's here with us today. Here's another one that Nori did. This is where the Learning Sprout used to be, right on Pacific Avenue. And again, I'll give another nod to Downtown Tacoma Partnership here. So we slapped their stencil on some of these in the downtown area. And so they were the main funding source for these murals in the downtown area in the beginning. The Downtown Partnership gets money from the property owners every year, pay in, and then the Downtown Tacoma Partnership, they clean the streets, they buff tags, they put up the signs, banners, decorations. They have security forces downtown. You know, they do a lot for this. They have a map of the area they cover downtown, and so they're a great organization to be able to work with on this situation. They were able to funnel some money right at it. Spaceworks, we were able to jump in and administer. You know, just dealing with the artists in between the spaces and just making sure they're getting paid and everything they need, and the coordinating and logistics. So that's how we kind of slapped it all together. It's kind of an experiment, the whole project, and we got a lot of these done. We ended up getting about 25 done. So how many do you think were done in Tacoma total? 100, maybe. I want to say there's at least 100 like murals that went up during this time in Tacoma. I could be wrong. And then the Hope Grows Here project, they're in windows all over town. I mean, there's, you know, a lot of artistic activity going on out there. But so anyway, so we ended up getting to about 25 of these through this project. So just some sense of the scope there. These are two by Cyree, who's here with us today as well. And Cyree was able to do this beautiful, like, you know, these flowers with a poem, and then to be able to replicate with new poems with new flowers. It was a great way to kind of repeat these designs, but sort of keep them fresh. This is the front of Urban Exchange. And this is by Angela Larson. Pretty powerful message there at the beginning. And then people were coming up and adding to it, right? Like, I was just down there taking pictures and people were adding messages to it, right? And they're asking me if they thought it'd be fine if they taped it on there, if the artist would be worried. And I was like, you know, just go for it. I mean, it's all public art. It's good messages. You know, people were adding their own messages in all kinds of ways. It was great to see the response. Curtis Ashby, we sent out to several different sites. He did all these beautiful birds. That's Black Eagle tattoo in the Lincoln International District. And so he did a Black Eagle, you know, for the Black Eagle, so customizing a bit. And then when the, when the protests started breaking out and artists were then, new boards were going up and artists were responding to racial injustice across the nation and all these horrible incidents, it really shifted how things were, the content. Like some of these pandemic murals all of a sudden didn't quite make sense. Like Angela Larson was in the middle of painting this one and her message just it was not the right message anymore. So she had to switch the wording to, to kind of find a delicate balance between, like, maybe, you know, being able to maybe address both issues, just being sensitive to the larger issues going on. So, I thought she struck a really good balance here with, like, making it with the orcas, bringing it local, but also, like, kind of in a way, giving a nod and a positive message, shedding some positive light on everything going on. And Nori painted these dragons right around the same time. So Nori will probably talk some more about these dragons, and you can pose with them at the wings. And there's one for kids too. And then did this dragon face where it says "Prevail and Justice" and "Together" across the top. So able to kind of tie it all together there. Oops. Chris Sharp did a few murals for us too. Chris Sharp is a sign painter and artist, been in Tacoma a long time. He's done these umbrellas. He has the umbrellas down by the Tacoma Dome, so he decided to bring the umbrellas back out again. And yeah, then okay, so then Tiffany Hammonds got to work when Pacific Avenue got boarded up entirely, went right to work covering up tons of these boards, and then we were able to match her with the Black Student Union and work with UW-T to do this one on Hello Cupcake. So we'll talk more about that when Tiffany joins the conversation stuff too here. And then Mindy Barker, this one was done recently during Pride with a Black Lives Matter message as well on the Rainbow Center, and working with the youth at Oasis right next to the Rainbow Center there as well too. So a lot to show and a lot to share. And so if I didn't miss anything major about the project there, I think
before we hop into individual artists, we did have a couple of questions come in. One of them is, does Spaceworks work in Furcrest and University Place too?
Oh man, no, unfortunately, we are Spaceworks Tacoma, and we are very much, a lot of our funds are tied to the city and economic development within the city of Tacoma. Not all of them, but we have several funding sources, but we generally are focused pretty much on the city. That being said, artists from the Pacific Northwest can apply to our art programs in Tacoma, so that they can come. We have artists in our gallery and some of these murals, and other projects are artists from outside of Tacoma. So, that is a way for those artists to engage. So yeah.
Great. We had another question come in. Were other artists just independently putting up murals outside of the kind of scope of the Spacework program? And have those folks been compensated, or do you know how any of that has been working? Or do artists really need to go through the specific project that we're talking about today?
Yeah, thank you. That's something I really, really wanted to emphasize here. Trying to hammer that point home is most of this was done by the businesses and artists themselves, happening organically. I'm very roughly estimating there must be about 100 of these around town, and we ended up doing about 25 of them through the Spaceworks program. Even some of them, though, they came to us. They already had the artist and the business. They're already matched, and then they just came to Spaceworks, trying to work together to do more or to help with compensation. And so a lot of this happened organically. And so the interesting thing there is there's government support on many of those levels, like on the back end. So it's kind of like it's really the people in the community and the small businesses and the artists that were initiating all this, but there's so many levels of government support from so many different angles to support all that work. So it's a little bit different in that way from the from the WPA, where that was a large federal response. So.
Great, thank you. Keep pouring in questions, y'all. We'll kind of interject them in as they make sense, or we might hold some of these meatier ones that just came in until the end so that we can really dig into them. So keep the questions coming. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. And so these 4 artists that we're gonna hear from right now are artists that I've got to work with through Spaceworks and other things as well for several years now, and I admire them immensely, and so I'm really, really happy to get to share their work with us and perspectives here today. So, Cyree, you are directly under me right now on the screen thing, so I'll just hand it off to you first, if that's cool, and I'll stop sharing my screen.
Thanks, Gabriel. I'll pull up my screen then. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Cyree Rafai, they, them, she, her pronouns. I guess I consider myself more of a community artist, really trying to, when I do things publicly, really try to reflect the times and the stories that need to be told. I also do a bit of printmaking, meticulous stippling, and other art forms as well. So here are some examples of what I've done over the last few years. The first one on the left is Reemerging and Healing. It's a mural, which 4/5 of it is still intact downtown. It's supposed to be a temporary mural through Spaceworks. I'm talking about the Northwest Detention Center and the liquid natural gas plant in Tacoma and trying to merge those movements together. The middle picture is an example of a lino cut that I've done through the Ways Goose Print Festival. That one was done last year. And the drawing on the right is a more recent drawing just done during quarantine times to celebrate a friend who had a baby during COVID, and just like really been in awe of that experience that she is having now being a new mom. So as far as the Rapid Mural project, as Gabriel had mentioned, had the opportunity to first paint stockless goods and gifts. My friends at Stocklist have been like a really amazing support for me over the last few years, like taking me in when I needed a place to live. They've sold some of my hand-drawn coloring books, or the rest of them, I guess, through their store. And so when they reached out before this project even became part of the Rapid Mural project, and just kind of really sad, saying they were going to board up their business, but wanted to support local art and bring some vibrancy to the outside of their store. I immediately said yes. They asked me on a Thursday, and I was painting on a Saturday, and got it finished in a day. And as I was thinking about this, you know, they were kind of overwhelmed with the transition and timing of everything. They let me design it fully. And so during that time, it was pretty soon when the stay-at-home order was put into place, I was thinking about what folks were probably missing, not being able to leave their homes. And though I've never been to the Tulip Festival, that was one thing that came to mind. You know, springtime is a time where things are blossoming and emerging, and a lot of people flock up north to go see the tulips. And so I thought, well, why not bring some of those here in case folks can enjoy those downtown. And then I ended up writing a kind of silly little poem to hopefully to remind folks to share some love during this time. And then pretty soon after that, I was contacted by Gabriel and said, there's more businesses that are boarding up and really want a mural. Can you design some that I can share with business owners? So I drew up some designs, and London's on the Ave was the next one that I painted as well, and just took part of a poem that I had written a while ago to add to that one. And in the same day, I painted London's on the Ave and Channing Baby and Company. So I took to heart this Rapid Mural project and was like, I want to get them done in one day. And thanks to Liz and Aaron from Stocklist, they helped me kind of buff the board. So I had some help with that, and then I could just paint the rest myself, and that was able to happen in a day. So with each of them, and this was also part of the same poem as the last one, and just taking excerpts of that. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's anything else folks want me to share at the moment.
That's great. So thank you. Those are beautiful images, and yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, we'll definitely have more questions, and you know, we'll chime in on the conversation again with you in a bit here. But yeah, let's move on to the next artist. I guess Nori, I'm seeing you next on my screen. If you want to jump in there next.
Okay. So should I screen share or okay? The image is right. Okay, good. My name's Nori Kimura. I'm originally from Tokyo, Japan, and I've been here about what 27 years already or so. Anyway, so this one is the last paint I did, which is 4 dragons. What I came up is the something that people can be a part of the mural. And the idea was the wing, and I see the you know, angel wings, and those are before, but I haven't seen the dragon wings. And I happen to have my student. I teach homeschool as well, so a couple of kids love dragons, and I thought, why not? I have wide space, so let's have a dragon there. So I have a kid's dragon, an adult dragon, or a little bit more energy involved, and then we have sleeping dragon with a baby in the green, and I have the yes, this is. So this one is done with a couple of my students. They love dragons, and my intention of the mural is I don't want to paint by myself. I'd like to share any way I can, either as a form of the wing, people can be a part of the art, or people can participate drawing with me. So this was the project that I decided to do with my students. So there's a couple of students paint half of the stuff as well. And okay, this one is the City of Kent in front of the, no, not City of Kent. Oh, let's see. Skipping my mind. This is in front of the library, and this is traffic control box wrap project. And I also do the children's book, and this is the idea of each panel have a story. So you go around and you can tell the story. This is a story about was reading the book and the two kids going through the journey. And it was appropriate for the library and a request from the city that there's some ideas. So that's the drawing of it. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is my first children's book done with the author Kurt Bigby, and this is done by the watercolor pencil only. And I tried to put a lot of native plants here. I love native plants, and also I do volunteer as park steward in Metro Parks Tacoma, as a park steward in a Franklin Park. So my arts is always involved with the family and plants and nature. And I like to put everything put together. And I like to draw in the mural so that actually you can be in the scene as well. So do I have another images? Okay, so these are also, I do the iPad, and those digital, and one of my favorite is the promoting Tacoma. One is the Tacoma Dome with Sasquatch. So before, well, I have an idea, so I wanted to do it before other artists do it. So anyway, and then I have the big Only You. This one is inspired by the Smokey the Bear, but I haven't seen the Sasquatch version. So it's kind of try to have fun with my art as well. And another images. Okay, if you can go back to the first one. Or the first one. So I didn't tell you the location, but this is the right next to the donut store in downtown, which is a 762 St. Helens Avenue. And if you go to the Thursday farmers market, it's right there. So please go over there and be a dragon. Thank you.
Thank you, Nori. That's great. Yep, yeah, just up the street from the market. That's perfect. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Mindy, it looks like you're next on my screen list here. Oh, you're on mute still.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So I'm Mindy Barker, and I've had business here in Tacoma since 1993. So I started art business, primarily working in people's homes. So doing finishes and things of that sort, but a lot of murals. And after the downturn in about 2008, I started to do some more public work and started doing things through Spaceworks. Some things through Spaceworks, but also things through the murals program through the city. And so I pretty much have, I think it was told to me that the artists that were first approached with Spaceworks were maybe full-time artists, and so I'm one of those that that's what was my full-time work. And so a lot of my projects with Public Works is to do with community. You know, you have to work with community and get their feedback a lot of times. I don't have like you guys did a really great presentation. I actually have, Gabriel has a few things. Of course, you've seen some of them, but most of my stuff is on my website. There's a lot of different things. So go ahead and check that out. But in regards to the rapid response, so Gabriel approached me and I was one of the artists that were to submit three designs. And the whole idea of it was, you know, usually my stuff is, you know, maybe more involved. I'll design it right for the spot and for the location and talk to the community, get feedback and whatnot. But this was something that I could, like Gabriel was saying, is something I could replicate really easily. And so all my designs were fairly simple, and I just wanted to keep it simple. And then really, actually, I just changed the colors on some of them because there's a few that were chosen a couple times. But it was and then also the substrate was also different, you know, because it was done on plywood. So things had to be a little bit more, for me, like straightforward. You could do it in all kinds of different ways, but I decided to do a little bit more graphic ideas. One being a pattern, so that was the tree one was pattern, and then the love one, it could be expanded and contracted to whatever size that the building was, because we didn't know what size the boards would be, and then I actually was approached by another business owner too. And so I used one of the designs for a different business, Brooks Dental, and did it independently from Spaceworks. But other than that, it was all through Spaceworks, my involvement. And yeah, I don't know. I would just like to hear some questions. I would love to get into the discussion of everything, because I find it so interesting, especially when Tiffany got involved with everything. I was just blown away by what was going on down on Pacific. And at that point, I was approached by a few things and I was like, no, you guys, this is not my place to be doing this. So I did I was approached to do the Rainbow Center, but then that's where my projects have ended. So yeah, I'm gonna keep it short.
Yeah. No, thank you, Mindy. That's
yeah.
Perfect. And yeah. So to kick it off to Tiffany here. Hi, Tiffany. Tiffany basically just had a marathon of painting all of Pacific Avenue in the kind of museum UW corridor. Well, I mean, you did most of it, but you also enlisted a lot of helpers and people to come out and participate in it too. So yeah, so I hope you got a little break this last few days, right? You got to get out of town and have a minute of rest, I hope.
Yeah, I actually just came from hiking, and I was in a really competitive Uno game, and I was supposed to head back earlier, and I just, in my heart, like I was with an 8-year-old, and we were teaming up against the other two, and his name was Peanut, and I was like, man, Peanut, I'm not gonna let you down, and we won. So, and then I was like, guys, you know, I have this thing, and I have to run back, so we're here. I apologize for being very art brain. But yeah, do I just go? Do you want me to go ahead and do my
little talk away, and then I have some images here that I can just from the recent from the most recent one that you did, like with Spaceworks and the Blacksmith Union. I have some close-ups and images of that and a couple other Satori and stuff here. So if you want me to pull up any of these specifically, here, I'll leave it on this one for a minute. This is a nice one.
Sounds good. Okay, so I'm Tiffany. I started doing murals when I was 12 through Chris Jordan and Kenji Stoll. They saw my refrigerator art on my dad's refrigerator. And Chris was like, hey, you want to paint a mural? And I was like, I'm 12, so I Google what a mural is, and I see all these beautiful walls of paintings. And I was like, that'd be really awesome. So I said, yeah. I emailed him with my tiffy222 email, and I was like, hey, like, I'm down. And one thing led to the next, and my first mural was St. Vincent de Paul. From then on, I became a part of Fab Five as the organization as a student, and I started as a graffiti kid. From doing graffiti, I like got really infatuated with the way that people, like, certain folks did characters instead of just letters, and that went on to me doing like more character work. And just painting people with different colored faces. And like I would paint like green people and purple people and yellow people and all these other things. And from after that, I used to babysit my neighbor's kids, and they actually had an old case of oil paints. And so they were like, hey, like, we don't need these. Like, we know you kind of like paint, like, let's give you these oil paints. And I was like, okay. So I went home and I'm super excited, opened up turpentine in my like, really small room alone, and just inhaled all those fumes. I thought it was lovely. And from then on, I started painting like a lot with like oil painting and started doing portraiture work. After doing portraiture work, I kind of like went back and forth and just had like a lot of different things. And then I'm kind of skipping a lot of stuff, but anyways, my brother and my dad passed away at the end last year. And that kind of like made me reach to a certain like, decrease in doing art altogether, because those were like my main supporters. And my brother was the main reason why I got into graffiti, because I copied everything he did. And so I kind of like reached a spot where I didn't want to paint whatsoever anymore. And then I went on and I did this project called like Face of Nations. Thanks to Gabriel for like, having a space at alma mater to put that show up. But yeah, I decided to paint 150 portraits in 150 days because I'm a little crazy. And it kind of was like a reboot, and it like restarted me. And so it caused a lot of healing for me in that time of grief. And after painting 150 portraits, I was like, I don't want to paint any more portraits actually. And I actually looked back at some of my old sketchbooks that was in my mom's house, which I am at right now. And I was looking at a lot of my old characters and going back into how I use color and faces. And I'm trying to wrap this up really quick because I feel like I'm talking on right now. But anyways, so I use a lot of color and faces. And one thing that my mom does is in church, she uses flags. And so she changes the color of her flags depending on the mood. And so I started creating a key. And I was like, this color means this color, because I've, being like a faith-based person, I always had an issue with like being able to put exactly what I want on a wall. And so I started using color as a way to kind of transcribe that. And so I started creating this project called Face of Nations. Bada bing, bada boom. Satori got in contact with me, and they're like, hey, like, we want to hear some Black voices along this like street, and we have the opportunity to have, this wall, like, will you come paint? And I was like, sure, like, I'm down. And I did that. And then my friend actually worked at Indochine, and I went to actually help clean up. Had no intentions of painting. And the owner was like, hey, like, do you mind actually painting the logo? And I was like, yeah, like, of course, like, I wanted to give back into the community. And then I painted the logo, and he's like, that looks really good. And he's like, hey, you mind painting the rest of our 12 windows? And I was like, it's a lot of windows, but I'm here for a challenge. And it was like after a few months of not painting whatsoever, so I did it. And the thing is, like, when I went about it, it wasn't so much of like what I had to say, but more of it was like, I just felt, as being a part of the Black community, there was like so much grief going on. And I remember what grief felt like as in losing just like, people close to me. And like, I was going through a grieving process of losing people that I didn't even know. And so I realized that like, I have hope and I have joy and I have peace enough to give for folks who don't. And so that was my goal, was to deliver that message of hope, and saying like, if you don't see the light in this time, like, be that light. And then from then on, I did a project with Jimmy John's with all the kids. So the kids painted all of Jimmy John's. And then after that, I did the I Will Not Be Silent project, which was led by community, all community. I really didn't paint on that wall. I literally was just like, hey, y'all, I'm going to write I will not be silent. I want you to finish the sentence. Red is for something you're feeling passionate about. yellow is something that gives you hope, and then green is something like if you feel like it's a solution to what's going on. And so I had literally like 7 to 70. I even had conversations with like a lot of community members that I probably wouldn't have had before this project. So it was really cool. But I'll elaborate on that later. So that's kind of like, yeah, I feel like hopefully that encapsulates a lot of what's going on.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you, Tiffany. Yeah, and my first question I was going to ask is about public response. What kind of public response did you guys see on the street, but also social media, larger kind of public response? So I guess, yeah, Tiffany, can I just hand it off to you? And you can talk a little bit about some of the public response you've had in this process of painting these very powerful messages and working with so many people along Pacific Avenue there.
Yeah, if I talk too long, just kind of like, do your eyebrows like this, let me know. But no, so public response. So first and foremost, I have never received so many cupcakes from strangers in my life. I think I got at least half a dozen every single day. And yeah, I gained some weight from cupcakes. So that's the first response that I definitely got, was like, heck of cupcakes. Other than that, I would get a response a lot from the people walking by. And honestly, like at first I was a little frustrated because when I was writing a message of hope, it was, first intended for a lot of like the Black community. And I felt like as I was having conversation, a lot of people were walking by and taking the message as if I was trying to silence, or they would be like, this is way better than those, brown walls, or like, like if this, like, oh my gosh, the rioters, like, I'm glad you're writing something that's peaceful. I was saying like, like I wasn't being as passionate, or I wasn't doing something that was in such an uproar. And that really bothered me because I was just like, no, like I'm not trying to, you know what I'm saying? This isn't peaceful protesting. Like this is, me one, keeping myself safe. But two, just like, like using my medium as a way to advocate, for what's going on and to bring healing into my community, because that's what's needed most. One of the best things that I got in return from that was after I did the wall that said, I protest the robbery of my peace. There was a young lady that came by, and I would, amongst the murals, I would always point to my friends. So like people would be like, who painted this? And I would point to like one of my random friends, and they'd be like, no, I didn't paint it. Like, ah. And so I pointed to one of my random friends, like as I normally do. And she was like, no, I know it's Tiffany. Like, who is Tiffany? And I was like, oh, it's me, I'm sorry. Like I was joking. And she's like, I'm not going to tear up. She's like, but, like I was on social media and I was like livid, and she's just like, with everything that's going on, and like my heart was just so angry. And she went on to say that, she saw even like celebrities and stuff like that, like saying that we should pray in this time. And she just thought it was so ludicrous to say something, and she thought it was insensitive. And then she went on to say that when she read my mural that said, I would protest the robbery of my peace, that she regained peace. And honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I was stunned because like that's the exact response that I wanted, but I was surprised that it worked. And I realized that my murals wasn't just from like I said, it's not about my voice. It's not even about me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I really feel like I'm just called to be a mouthpiece. And so like the conversations, like I said, it sounds crazy, but I mean, I even had conversations with police officers that were actually super healing, that I wouldn't have had before in where I stand and for a lot of things. And I'm not saying I'm against police officers at all, but I'm saying in this time, it was really hard for me because like I said, I was mourning, I was frustrated, and there was just so much, like fear more than anything. It was more fear than anger. And so to be able to have that conversation, when I did the I will not be silent wall, I was like, hey, like, do you guys want to like write on this wall? You know what I'm saying? And like that conversation opened up so many other things that went on. And I don't know, it was the amount of conversations that I had that changed my life. Honestly, I can't even recall on all of them. There's some of them that I was like, I had a conversation with people and I was like, dang, I wish I record that. But for the most part, like every time I did a wall or anytime I was out there painting, like, I just really saw the community in the sense of like, making sure like people were making sure that I was drinking water, or, you know what I'm saying? Like just checking on me and just motivating me and like taking pictures. And I saw some graduates take pictures in front of the walls and like, like posting it. And I don't know, it's just the way that the community responded to these walls. One made me feel so proud to be an artist in Tacoma, but one made me feel like my family was like so much larger in the sense of when it comes to supporters. And not just supporters, but like I said, it was more like a family thing where I was just like, dang, like there's so many people out here. You know what I'm saying? That I didn't know, that even like cared about like what I was doing.
And in a time when it feels so divisive.
Yeah, it was beautiful.
Then you're out there having that experience every day and sharing that with people, and that's, I mean, it's invaluable and incalculable how much difference that has made in even everyday life for people going by, And
yeah. No, so I'm like, I mean, like I said, it's really hard for me to even like, because there were so many conversations. I was out there for like the entire month of June, honestly, from like 8 to 8. So, but like there was a lot of opportunities, and all I can say is that like not only was my goal to heal, but like I feel like I healed almost more than anybody else, and I just feel like it was kind of like a device to kind of set folks forward, and yeah, I mean the response from that was super dope. So.
Well, I'm so glad that you were given this community was able to give you the space to make all that experience happen, and you brought so much to it and made it happen. So thank you for that. And so again, with public response, and what are some other stories, Saray or Nori or Mindy? Do you have any funny stories from out there, or just social media things, or what kind of public response were you seeing?
I go first then. So I feel like my drawing is more, I wanted to, so while I'm drawing, I see a lot of people come by and say that, a couple words, encouraging word as well. But they also have people who are coming and want to talk. So it's more like, sometimes I feel like I'm like a listener. They wanted to be heard. So just a random thing. So it was kind of interesting. I'm drawing, at the same time I'm listening. Like, am I doing the counseling? But it's kind of like, but it's also get to know the people who live nearby. And they sometimes have an interesting conversation or stories that I get to discover. So, and also feels more closer to the people who live nearby, especially downtown Tacoma. I didn't, typically go there in the evening time or early in the morning, but I get to able to know the people who live there. So I feel more, connected to the site. So to me, it's like if I go to the location, I get to know the more about the environment and also people, which is really special to me. That's kind of privilege to know. Otherwise, I'm not gonna able to find out. So sometimes that I get encouragement, also kind of discouragement as well. But I understand other people's view towards what I'm drawing, and I never thought of. So which is kind of like a little bit of adjustment, but it's kind of nice to listening. It take a while to digest, but it's also realizing that when I join this drawing, I see positive, but some people see the negative. So which is kind of nice to know. It's not necessary that I'm going to change completely, but I'll put your feedback in there. I'll take a couple, nights to think about it, or a little reflect. But so I feel it's kind of helps me also kind of like widen my view as well. Or other people's thinking differently, and it's okay. It's okay to take it, or it's okay to not take it. But it's like aware of the people have a different opinion. So that would be my experience with the people.
Yeah. And people are craving interaction right now too. So there's the fact that you got to have these, really dynamic interactions with people is great too. I might jump on to the next question just about your artistic kind of practices during the pandemic right now, unless you had something burning, Mindy or Sairae, to say on that one. But I kind of want to give you each maybe just like 1 minute to share, because we're getting close up to the end here. So could you all just take 1 minute to talk about your artistic practice during the pandemic, kind of how it's changed, how you're feeling? Are you busier or not? And just a quick minute on each of that for each of you. Sairae, would you like to jump in first?
Sure. Well, I definitely was surprised about this Rapid Mural project, so I felt a lot busier than I've been in a while as far as art. It's not what I kind of live off of at the moment, so it's whenever I have the time and space to make things happen. So, but it has, I feel like, increased in some ways with those murals, and I also do some organizing outside of my day job, and that has, has enabled me to explore more digital art in some ways for social media. And within the last month or two, I've been inducted into an artist collective called Just Seeds. And so though I haven't been starting to make things as much, just anticipating making more prints to be shared through that artist collective as well, and being connected with a network of artists who put kind of like social justice themes, kind of socio-political themes at the forefront of their work. And so kind of anticipating projects like that. And I've had people reach out as well for different projects for like logos and other things that I wasn't anticipating, but I think people are trying to work on their personal projects too, and are reliant on artists to support them in the ways that they can't themselves. So they even connected with a friend who down the road wants me to illustrate a kid's book. And so we've had lots of conversations, and I've been, for a while, I was pretty busy sketching out layouts for pages for that book and things like that. So yeah, it's surprisingly been busier than I was expecting, for sure.
Yeah, I'm hearing that from a lot of artists. It's fantastic. Yeah, how about you, Mindy?
Yeah, I thought I was going to lose, a lot of the projects with the COVID. A lot of them, of course, like I'm a artist in residence at the Grant, and so last fall I taught the school to do murals, and then the new school actually has mural space. I didn't think that would go through because there's no students, but they actually ended up having me do a wall myself. And I've had clients that they're completely worried. I've already did designs for them and everything, and then they thought they had to back out, and they're just like, you know what, we just live once, so let's go forward with it. So I actually have been busier than normal, honestly, which is kind of weird. Usually I get maybe, if I'm lucky, a public works during the summer, a big one, and this one I'm actually through September, so that's great. Yeah, it's good, and people I think people are just, they just want to be involved. I think in the arts were so important, especially through the COVID, when I started with the rapid response. That's what got everybody through the COVID, at least, was the arts. Everybody was watching movies and listening to music and getting out to nature too. But that's all. So I think maybe there's more of appreciation for the arts right at this moment too. And as Tiffany was saying, like just being able to have that strong message and people looking for some kind of peace of some sort, some messages, just to get them by or to heal their hearts or something, to grab onto.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in Spaceworks, we were sort of jokingly saying, we'll get 20 murals done in 2020. We're up to 25 already. So so it's been, people need the art right now more than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Tiffany, how about you? I mean, we know you've been busy. Has it changed your artistic practice though? The pandemic and just changing landscape?
Kind of no, kind of yeah. Like I said, when COVID hit, like I did not want to paint, because it was the anniversary of like my dad and my brother's passing, and so like the month started with my brother's birthday and then my dad's birthday, and you know, so on and so forth, and like I was not trying to paint, and honestly, like I was just like surviving off of you know, like the organization I worked for, Fab Five, like was still, you know, like providing some type of income, and so I wasn't really like trying to actively seek any projects, because honestly I didn't have the capacity to paint, nor did I have the passion or want to paint. Actually, and a lot of times like I have these kind of seasons where I'm like, I'm not a painter, I quit art. And those happen like I think every other month, not gonna lie. And so but when I realized, like, you know, like I said, it's not really about me sometimes. I was really grateful when I got someone reached out to me, and from that, like it kind of like lit this like different fire, and I just was like so ready. And so like actually then Grit City like magazine like, you know, reached out, and like, you know, like so I'll be like designing their next issue, which I'm really excited about. And I'm working with a project in Hilltop to like help design the next affordable housing, like the apartments and stuff like that. And so there's some beautiful projects that have like really come up, and I'm like beyond blessed. I would say like it has changed a little bit, because now I like rely more on like kind of like the projects that I'm doing, and I'm staying busy, and I'm finishing up like a lot of different things. And I mean, obviously the way that I was late today, that says a lot about how I process things. So
Busy.
yeah. And so sometimes I think like right now I'm just kind of like figuring out how to balance, and so that I don't get burnt out anymore.
Yeah.
But focusing on how to like apply myself, because like I am pretty busy right now, but it's in a good way. And so I'm just like trying to find that balance to kind of like keep my brain afloat. So I'm just not like, hey, I quit art in the middle of doing a project, and that I'm like still, you know, passionate and like refreshed about doing these projects.
Yeah. Cool. And Nori?
Yes, sometimes typically I have a vending job, go to the art festivals, and most of the my income is the selling my wall art prints and also the greeting cards that I make. But this year is all gone, so my focus is more like trying to put the seed, like I'm available for the mural, and also my focus on the drawing, preparing for the Zoom class for my students. So I'm putting a lot of cartoon, kind of making a story. So that's gonna keep me going at this moment. So
yeah,
cool.
Great. Okay, well, I want to acknowledge that it is 7 o'clock right now, and we wanted to kind of shift to jumping into the answering some questions here, and I do want to just work into the part of conversation here too, like the afterlife of some of these boards. So for any audience that's still hanging around with us, and I think we'll hit on that for sure too, because there's some interesting things to talk about there. So yeah, Christina, do we have some questions from the audience?
We have lots of questions, some really good ones. 3 people, in fact, are asking about that kind of question of, well, these are meant to be temporary public art pieces, so what's going to happen once these businesses hopefully reopen soon? What happens to the murals? Is there a plan to exhibit them somewhere? I know some of the businesses have already reopened, so where are those murals being kept? So
Yes.
What's phase 2?
Yes. So currently, UW-T agreed to store them. So they have a good sized storage facility, and so they're all going there. The ones that have been taken down so far, at least all the ones that we've been able to be in contact with, or that were already in contact with us. And so we've been with Spaceworks, Downtown Tacoma Partnership, some others have been working on getting those collected and stored in that space. Seattle is doing a similar thing. They're using King Street Station right now to take all the murals from the CHOP area are being collected there and documented, and then they're working on other neighborhoods and districts around Seattle and trying to get them all, and they're documenting them. But we're both kind of in the same shoes. Like we're gathering them, it's kind of, there's a lot of questions from there, ownership of the boards, and then so a lot of logistical questions like that. But then the big question is, what's going to be done? Yeah, can we have a giant exhibit somewhere of them in the future, right? Or something exciting like that. So that is to be determined. We're hearing a lot of community interest though about it at Spaceworks. So we absolutely recognize the value of them to people. So I'd kind of like to dish that to some of the artists too. Have you guys had any ideas?
What if there's
would you like to see?
I think it would be cool if there's a book put out that with all the collection, whether it's just with the COVID or with both, all with all the protests, or maybe there's two different ones. But it's cool how it all melded in together. It's like all, really a message of support for the public. So maybe a neat collection.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that, honestly.
You?
And just like when I was looking at like a lot of like the older issues of like the Grit City magazine too, and how they like kind of showcase a lot of like the local art. That would be really cool to see, maybe like a collab of something.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say that, but I think it would be cool.
Absolutely. Just brainstorming here.
But other than that, I know I've talked to Satori, and like they want to keep some of their boards like in shop. And then we also talked about like, after like showcasing, like either making them into smaller pieces or something of that sort. But yeah.
Yeah, do we have any publishers in the audience that want to jump in with a book offer? We have a question that goes back to our artists. Gabriel, you mentioned that people were coming along later and either adding things or attaching bills and things like that to different works. So this is a question from our curator, actually, of our Forgotten Stories exhibition, and she's wondering, are artists okay with that? Are you good with folks adding things? And are you all, or is Spaceworks, monitoring what might be being added to see if that is changing the message of your work and how all that is working together?
I mean, there's a lot of element of chaos to this whole project because it was all happening so fast, and the boards are coming up, they're going down. So in general, the boards, artists painting on the boards just really set a tone for like how people respond to it. So the types of messages, the types of tags, the types of, just things that people are adding to it are really guided by the artist. The artist is like leading the conversation sort of. So it ends up being, for the most part, a very positive experience when people adding to it. And most artists I talk to tend to agree and tend to like the sort of conversation that happens there, and so much better than a blank wall and what can happen, there. So, Spaceworks, we just, if a mural that were put up, even if it's temporary, we will either try to repair it ourselves if the damage is really bad, or we will pay the artist to go up and like do some fix-it work on the mural itself. So that's just part of the some ongoing maintenance that we provide. But we haven't really had to do that in any of these situations. It's been so fast. So I don't know. Have you all had? Of you artists, did you see like anything that you really loved, like a response to it, or did you have any bad damage?
I fixed graffitis on the drawings.
Yeah.
Sorry. I didn't really experience I didn't experience vandalism, and I think that's partially because some of the projects that I did actually gave people and out to actually like write on the wall. And I think when that, you know, and I mean, I think part of that is like, I had conversations with people, so it's not like they like just like saw my art and they're like, hey, art, you know, on a wall. They're like, oh, I know that person. I had a conversation with that person. And I think like, you know, that also like brought some towards the respect. Obviously, people should respect art in general because of like the work and the task that it takes to put something up. But I think because of the community mural, I think that's probably what limited a lot of like the vandalism that took place. And just, yeah.
Great. So Beverly asked a couple of questions. So I'm going to read this one verbatim because there's a lot of good language in here. So she says, these murals are very handsome and it's great that they went up so quickly. I'm sure they helped lift the spirits of many people walking or traveling through. The multiple tsunamis of the pandemic, economic collapse, police violence, the uprising for racial justice, and the climate emergency are difficult to ignore. And I'm glad that some artists are taking these topics on. Are there murals that are reimagining the future and what it will be like post-COVID, post-economic collapse? I'd love to see that kind of content and would be happy to collaborate on something like that.
Let's work on it, Beverly.
I'm in.
All right, so we've got a new project brewing, but yeah, I think it's interesting. It seems like some of these murals are responding to kind of the current moment, but maybe this is a call to do a little more future thinking. I think Tiffany, you kind of alluded to that in your participatory project a little bit, but yeah, I think that's an interesting narrative.
Yeah, I liked seeing, you know, it's challenging to build your message and put it out there for so many people with so much going on too, and all those layers and leaving people with some kind of hope for the future at this moment, you know, and so it's amazing to see how artists are articulating that and changing that and all the subtle ways they're doing that. And so I've seen a lot of artists be really challenged to do that and maybe put stuff out in the public they haven't before. So I think, you know, like what Beverly's saying is like there's more energy around that than ever and more artists that have been putting this work together. So yes, it'd be great to channel that towards more murals in Tacoma. Everybody wants more murals in Tacoma. Everybody. We talk about this all the time. Spaceworks, like, people are always coming to us looking for murals. They want more murals. Artists want to do more murals.
That bleeds into a couple of our other questions. Are there any future programs similar to the Rapid Murals that Spaceworks is planning to continue? So I guess, are there more murals coming or something similar to facilitate public art in Tacoma? And then Beverly is back again, and she's asking specifically about projection projects. She's wondering specifically about environmental concerns, but projection might be an interesting angle.
Yes, very much so. Yes. So just with Spaceworks specifically, Spaceworks is a program of the Chamber of Commerce. So we have support coming from that angle, and we have individual donors, and we get corporate sponsorship and government contracts. We pulled together quite a bit, and we have a lot of interest to do murals. So we have quite a bit planned going forwards, and it's even happening right now. We're doing murals. We just put a couple up yesterday along the Sound Transit light rail extension. During construction, we have 7 murals going up, temporary projects. So we just put 2 up, 2 yesterday, one by Gerardo Pena and another by Colin Anderson. And they're going to keep they kind of dot themselves along, starting downtown, going through Stadium, and then up through Hilltop. So we're putting those up right now. So you'll see that coming out on our social media and on our website and newsletter here soon. And then also Tacoma Creates. Spaceworks was awarded some Tacoma Creates money, and we were able to use some of those funds to do some of these murals, and we're planning to do that to do more murals. And we also have a contract. We're working with a history museum on the Men of Change exhibit that they had this last that Men of Change exhibit. When they had that, a part of that was to do a mural in the community, and so it's just unfortunately got postponed a little. It's got pushed back a little bit through this, but very much still happening. And so you'll be seeing a mural come together from a local muralist in the Hilltop neighborhood. So you'll hear more about that here soon. So yeah, we got quite a bit cooking with murals.
Yeah, both the artists and the arts administrators seem like they are very, very busy in this moment.
Yes, yes.
Somebody chimed in asking, well, how can they be an artist with Spaceworks? What does that process look like? How can they be involved?
Yeah, so at the moment we don't have any public calls open, but we will soon. We'll have a open application process for we're kind of going project by project right now because they've been so specific to specific situations. So it's best to just kind of sign up for a newsletter or keep an eye on our social media to see when applications are coming out, when people kind of apply in case by case basis based on the project. So yeah, that's kind of the best way to get involved with Spaceworks. And then there's a lot of other opportunities out there. Just looking through Artist Trust, various other regional arts organizations. There's a lot of different resources to look to for places to apply to all kinds of artistic opportunities.
And sometimes if you know of a store owner or a business that you would think your work would be appropriate in or whatever, or you'd be a good collaboration, please, I think approach different businesses and see what they say. And because a lot of people will just give artists a chance to do something. Maybe you wouldn't be paid a whole lot, but at least you'd have something for your portfolio, which you do need to have in order to apply for things. So I always encourage a lot of people to do that. And speaking about like talking to people on the street, I chat with people all the time on the street that want to know more information about how to get involved with the arts community here. And so I always just point them to Spaceworks a lot of times or to the city website, but I think that's generally what I say is just approach a company or a business or an organization. So sometimes they'll let you do that.
I just saw in the chat, thanks Chris for posting the Tacoma's creatives.com is something we Spaceworks spearheaded recently, but it's a free platform for everyone to start their own profile on there. And it's one place to find, it puts it into categories of all the different creatives in Tacoma so everyone can create a nice profile. It's a great place for people to look if they're looking to hire a graphic designer or to commission an artist or looking for performers, anyone in the creative realm. Yeah, so that's a new resource. We're hoping there's a lot of great on there already. We're hoping that really takes off.
Yeah, we had a lovely comment in the chat from Kristen saying that I really like the public mural project because it's just that, public, allowing all people to see and interact with the art. Although museums do open for free for the public, or will again eventually, it's good to have it out and about for everyone to enjoy. So I'll agree with that wholeheartedly as someone who works for a museum, and we've unfortunately had to close our doors. I think having public art available outside of the walls of a gallery is so important for people right now to be able to have that in-person engagement with art objects, because museums are doing great stuff online, but looking at a little thumbnail picture on your phone of a work of art isn't quite the same. So I'm incredibly grateful to live in such a creative city where we're just covered in art all over the place right now. It's pretty amazing. If anyone has any other questions, please go ahead and either throw those in the chat or the Q&A. But Gabriel, do you mind if I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, please.
I know that we're in kind of some contentious moments around federal funding for everything under the sun right now. But I think what was so incredible about the WPA projects were that there was this immense investment in artists saying that we respect you as professionals, we're going to pay you to do the work that you do best, and that there is an immense public value in granting everyday Americans access to great works of art. So I'm curious if any of our artists could speak to why it's important for there to be government support of the arts.
I'll say something. You know, just as I was saying before, it's all been proven that the arts are what sustain us and kind of give us a little energy and hope, a little bit of hope for the future, I think. And I would hope that people, my hope is that the result of this will be that people evaluate where they want to put their appreciation for the arts and actually stand up for the arts a little bit more. I mean, it's been, you know, a little bit of a slog when there hasn't been funding and whatnot to find even appreciation for it. And I think that's kind of turned around. I feel like people value it a little bit more. And so I think I think generally the public needs to do something independent, you know, try to do as many things that, like with the, you know, groups of people doing things, or maybe just some guerrilla art here and there. And maybe not be so at this time, because the funding has been diverted so much that they're, you know, sometimes not having a lot of resources makes wonderful art. I mean, it's just makes people just even that much more creative and using found objects and things of that sort, like, you know, Gabriel even does, you know, like all that stuff where you just reuse stuff and make a whole statement. And I think people will really appreciate that now. That's my hope. Yeah.
And I just want to uplift a project that I learned about in the last couple days. Kind of sparked in the Bay Area. I learned about this from Fabiana Rodriguez, who's an artist in Oakland, or based in Oakland, sharing about the Cultural New Deal, if folks aren't familiar. The Cultural New Deal is a call to transform our personal, institutional, and global thinking for cultural and racial justice, knowing that culture moves faster than policy, and art can transform the political landscape faster than kind of the bureaucratic processes. I'm taking some of this language from Fabiana as well. So right now there's a collaboration of some groups in the Bay that are pushing for 5 different demands. And you can find those at www.culturalnewdeal.com. Some of them include like the support and recognition and prioritization of leadership of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color. Maybe I'll just read them all. The reversal of long-term inequities in funding, hiring, and resources in the arts and cultural sector, the investment in arts and cultural ecosystems for Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, the investment of building healthy communities through centering cultural and racial equity, and then accountability, commitment, and integrity in the pursuit of cultural and racial justice. And they have far more extensive descriptions for each of these points, but I think in comparison to the show that's up at the Tacoma Art Museum right now, and this push, it's interesting that they have very similar names of New Deal in them, but and maybe there's some history behind that as well, but I think it's really an opportunity for us to think about, you know, what, as we're seeing communities, you know, that's tension that's been building over decades, hundreds of years, right? That we're in this time of like extreme transformation. And so how do we prioritize the voices that really need to be heard right now, and ensuring that they're supported and sustained during these times? Because I think with programs like Spaceworks, I think they found too, it's really hard to engage certain populations of people. And so it's taken, you know, some of us who've been through the programs to reach out to our networks and invite people into to projects, because there are certain communities that aren't encouraged to pursue them or don't know the channels to navigate, to access or even apply for art opportunities. And so I think trying to figure out who to prioritize and following that leadership will be really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great project. Amelia dropped the link to that website into the chat. I think that you and Mindy both brought up this idea of kind of working outside the system or creating systems that are outside of our existing ones, because we know that our existing systems are built on racist pillars and sexist pillars. And so there's a lot of work that needs to be done within those systems to make them much more equitable. So while that work is going on, maybe not waiting for those to get fixed until we build some systems that are working for voices that have been systemically left out of the conversation and excluded. Because I think that is a theme in the Forgotten Stories exhibition. It's a lot of white artists that got federal arts funding during the New Deal projects during the Great Depression. And a lot of other folks of color and Indigenous artists were left out of that conversation.
And I personally find that that technology sometimes is a really big factor, because in order to apply for anything, you need to have a computer, you need to have a camera, there's so many things that isolate people. For example, one of the gentlemen I saw down when I was doing the Rainbow Center, he was homeless, and he brought me, he didn't bring me, he just was walking by and he was talking to me, and I was like, asking me how he could get involved with the arts. And he started showing me his sketchbooks. And I was like, oh my gosh, you need to, but he didn't have any resources to get to show his work, because it was just in his shopping cart, literally. But he carried it around and he just kept drawing, and it was just amazing. And I don't know what to say. It is like a barrier, really, is the technology. So if we could figure that out too, because there's so many people that are wonderful artists that they don't know how to actually get into the system, because it's so complicated. It's complicated for me, and I've been doing this since '93. So yeah, anyways.
Yeah, the ecosystem is pretty complex. Michael dropped into the Q&A some interesting stats. So he says, another reason why government support is important is that fine artists in Tacoma earn on average only $7.81 an hour. It's not just about what we pay artists, but as independent contractors, what social safety nets are in place, such as unemployment benefits, universal health care, affordable housing, retirement, etc. So it's not just about, please fund the NEA. We have to get a lot of these other supports in place so that we can make sure that artists can do the art that they need to do out in the world. Any other questions, either from the crowd or Gabriel or our artists, if you have questions for each other?
I would just like to say that I really like that conversation of like making it more accessible, because I definitely had like other artists come up and like, allowing them to be able to paint, but I was just like, at the same time, like, as they're doing public art, like they should be compensated. And so, like buying them dinner just didn't feel like it sufficed. Although I know it was like, cool. And like a lot of these projects were like voluntary. It was more of just like, I feel like I'm kind of leading you to a dead end, even though like, I'm trying to like put them on and telling them about like, other organizations in Tacoma that help. Like, I would like to figure out a different way to like lead people into like more opportunities. Cause as much as I love to do projects in Tacoma, I'm kind of tired of seeing my own face. So I think it would be dope to get a little bit of more of diversity. Because I also feel like Tacoma kind of does this thing where they kind of tokenize the same few artists after a certain amount of time. And I would be wrong to recognize like the privilege that I have, being kind of like one of like those Black tokens that people, like use for artists. And I think like, although my art does speak out, like I would like to figure out a way, either like the young people that I work with, maybe if we could do like some like young person, project. Cause like, that's how I came up. I started doing murals at 12. And so like, as like, 12-year-olds were coming to paint with me, I was like, yo, like you could start right now. You know what I'm saying? Your career could start right now. And so I just want to know more ways of how I can support them. So I guess this is kind of a question, but also like not a question, but more ways how I can support like, especially young people who are coming up, to know that they can actually start their career and start their portfolio like right now, instead of like waiting until they're older, because, like you're building your skill right now. So you should be paid for the skill that you're building, But yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
sorry for eating toast in the video.
No, feed yourself. It's all part of it. We're in pandemic times. Anything goes on a Zoom call at this point. Anything else from anybody? Gabriel, anything that you wanted to share just kind of to wrap us up?
I just wanted to thank the artist and Tacoma Art Museum again for having us have this moment to reflect on the project, and I know we're all really busy right now, which is amazing. Just thankful for that.
Yeah, thank you so much to each and every one of you, our artists, Gabriel, those of you that were able to stick around for our Q&A. This was an incredibly rich conversation. I think we could have gone on for much longer because there's a lot to talk about with all of this, but I look forward to seeing more art from each of you around town and from some new artists, and hopefully we'll be able to shine the light on some additional voices in the future. So
thank you, everyone.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.